You're in back-to-back meetings all day long. You're trying to stay present, but you're also worried you'll forget the action item or the critical next step. That's where Granola comes in. Granola is an AI-powered notepad for meetings. With Granola, just jot down rough notes like you always do. In the background, Granola transcribes and turns them into clear, useful takeaways as soon as the meeting ends. You can even chat with your notes during or after the call. Ask Granola to help you negotiate, write a follow-up email, or even coach you using recipes. Once you use it on the first meeting, it's hard to go without Granola.
To say compliance is complicated is an understatement. Constantly worrying about SOC 2, ISO, HIPAA, CMMC, FedRAMP, and more can leave your head spinning. Even worse, a misstep can get pretty costly for your startup. That's why Delve is designed as an AI-native compliance platform. Delve uses AI agents to handle headaches like taking repetitive screenshots for you. Their team can personally work with you in Slack to get you 100% compliant and manage your whole audit for you. For our listeners, they're offering an exclusive $1,000 discount on any compliance framework. Check out delve.co/book-demo and start using AI for compliance. That's delve.co/book-demo and use code FinTech 1K.
Hey everyone, even in 2026, when fintechs can spin up cards in minutes and move money across borders in real time, it's still hard to decipher transactions. That's why financial institutions turn to Spade. Spade is the data and AI platform that turns messy transaction strings into structured, verified records in real time. To learn more, head to spade.com. That's SPADE.com.
Well, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the FinTech OGs, yet another all-female episode. I think this will be our third one for this season, if I remember correctly. And our final two episodes will have two men on them instead, but also great guests, and I'm super excited for it. But thank you so much for joining us. We have Michelle Tran and Sasha Pilch. If you listen to TWIF and read our content, you have definitely seen Sasha. She does our This Month in FinTech podcast, where she gets some amazing guests, executives at different fintech companies, investors, etc. And you guys, you started New York City FinTech Women together, right? Is that how you met, or how did you guys meet? And give me a little bit more about your background and how that came about too.
Yeah, we, oh gosh, I don't even remember the year, Sasha.
It was 9 years ago now.
Oh, 9 years.
I was going to say 2017. Yeah. And I remember I did it with you guys during COVID for FinTech Today. I was one of the featured people. So I was like, full circle.
Full circle. No, it's definitely come a long way since we met. So Sasha and I met at the very, very first NYC FinTech Women. So like dialing it back, I was working at BlackRock. I was leading our fintech strategy, but this was like early when robo-advisors were still like the hot new thing, and they were
because you were into like ETFs and stuff when you were at BlackRock.
So I was at BlackRock, an ETF in the iShares business, and this is when all the robo-advisors were using iShares ETFs, and so we're like, ooh, we need to get into this business. But I was going to a ton of fintech conferences, a ton of fintech meetups, and you know the story, right? It's like full of guys. Like there was no one to find. So literally just paid $80 on meetup.com. I don't even know if meetup.com exists anymore, but paid $80 on meetup.com. The name Women in FinTech wasn't available. So I was like, I'll just put NYC in front of it. So that's how it started, was NYC FinTech Women. And then found a bar that would host us, and it started raining in New York. I was like, oh, great, no one's coming. But then magically Sasha walked in the door, and it was an amazing union from the very start. But
amazing. Wait, was Sasha the only one that came then?
We had about 16 women, so 1 out of 16. But it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I remember meeting Larissa there, and like a lot of people that ended up being the committee and like doing a lot of work for the organization and building it to what it is today. And something I don't think I've even told you, Michelle, but when you lived in Hong Kong, did you go to any of these women meetups as well?
No, I never did. I mean, Hong Kong's such a different beast from New York, but I never went to any of it was like never in my purview until I got to New York and was going to all these like fintech, because I think being in asset management, you just know that it's just very male heavy, male dominated. Like in Hong Kong, you're wearing 3-piece suits in 90-degree humidity.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I bring that up is my dad used to live in Hong Kong. And so I was like desperate to like move overseas and expand my career. And when I went there, I went to a women's networking event, and there's a woman, Fran, that ran that, and she knows you as well. And I've never got around to telling you that.
I know Fran. She work together.
Yeah, she's
Australian.
Yeah, very helpful. Yeah, she's great.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, outside of New York City FinTech Women and Sasha, outside of doing This Week in FinTech's podcast, tell me a little bit more about your guys' backgrounds, how you got into FinTech, and why you're still here today. What's kept you?
Yeah, so I've been in financial services my entire career. So I started at BlackRock for 10 years. I've been at a number of different wealth tech and financial services fintechs. And how I got into fintech very specifically, well, BlackRock and Larry Fink will say that they're the original fintech with the Aladdin platform way back when, before it was called fintech. And essentially that's true, right? They were providing a way for data to be collected in all financial transactions, services, data. But, I was really fortunate to have a global career with BlackRock, with the iShares business, going from San Francisco to Hong Kong, which took me to New York, and which was the fintech start. I remember my boss pulled me aside in Hong Kong, and she was like, look, something's happening in the US, and do you want to go back? And I was like, no, not really. I love Hong Kong. I get to go to Vietnam in an hour. I get to go to Tokyo for the weekend. And I was there for 2 years. And it was amazing. Like, we'd wake up on a Thursday and be like, should we go to Ho Chi Minh or should we go to Tokyo? I don't know. But it was, something told me that this was a really cool start. It was something new and innovative. And so we moved to New York, and that was when I was more formally into the fintech space. And so we created a group. That was 2014, end of 2014, 2015. So that was when that really started. That's when I came back. And then have just been part of a number of awesome fintech firms like Apex Clearing, which, helped a lot of the robo-advisors and digital brokers, and was at Vestwall, which raised, Series E and taking over the retirement space. And now what I'm doing with my love of startups and fintechs is, very focused on helping a lot of firms go to market, figuring out what is their commercial strategy, and getting them off. I love building. I love working with builders at the end of the day, but really helping them figure out how to get into market, and then also for firms to figure out how to scale, right? A lot of firms have a struggle with that. They think they can take over the world, but it's a lot of a process and build out. So it's been amazing, and fortunate that I get to go back to New York on a regular basis. I'm not there anymore. Left during COVID, as people shifted around, but I'm in the Bay Area, which is also amazing since we have a lot of women in fintech activity out here too.
Thank you for waking up so early to do this podcast, then. I appreciate it. I was wondering that. I was like, okay, it says she lives in the Bay Area, but is she visiting New York, or does she go back and forth between the two places?
Were you in this week? Yeah, I just got back from New York on Wednesday.
So are you still at least slightly on New York time zone then, or no?
You know what? I never know anymore what time zone I'm on. I just keep going. But if you guys didn't wake me up, a kid would have woken me up. So, someone would have.
Michelle is Superwoman. She does all of this and has 4 kids. So I don't know how she sleeps.
Get 2 more and you can be the next Emmeline Shaw and Matt Harris. You're good. They've got a bit like a bazillion.
I told my husband, let's do it. But no, that shop has closed.
Well, I think Matt Harris, part of the reason they have so many kids is because I believe they did IVF at some point, and with a surrogate, and both his wife and the surrogate got pregnant within 4 weeks of each other. It's wild.
That's happening a lot lately.
Crazy. Sasha, give us more about your background as well. And how did you hear about this event where you're like, you know what, yeah, I'm going to go to this little happy hour and see what's going on with FinTech Women?
Yeah, so I spent the first 10 years of my career working for big banks, similar to Michelle. I'm Australian, so I worked at CBA and in Westpac, and lived in London, worked at Citi and Royal Bank of Scotland. And at the end of a decade of that, I was so ready to not work for a 50,000 plus organization and to work for a fast moving startup. I was hearing all about fintech and wanted to jump on that wave, but there was nothing in Australia. Australia's not really broken. We have 4 banks. And so there wasn't a need like there is a need in the US. And I was on a holiday, a vacation, and I was still working at the bank in Australia, and I thought I was in Cuba, like so close to New York. So I was like, I may as well stop in New York for a few days. And then I asked my boss in Australia, she's like, yeah, no worries. I got to New York, loved it, realized how huge the fintech opportunity was, and then called my boss back the next day and quit.
I thought at first you were going to say you were literally in New York for 4 days, heard about this event, met Michelle, and like that's how it all started.
No, she met me.
Yes, similar, honestly. Like I knew I needed to get a job really quickly. I had like 60 days as a tourist, and I needed someone to sponsor me. And so I went to every networking event that I possibly could. And that's how I met someone that introduced me to Lauren, who would later take a chance on me and hire me at Quovo when she was leading sales.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah.
I love that.
She basically has created my life.
Lauren is the reason that you're in fintech. Amazing.
Sasha's the reason she's in fintech. I was lucky enough to get to work with her a gazillion times and still.
Well, I guess Lauren's the reason you discovered fintech. So
yeah, like I was very much wanting to get a role in fintech, and I liked Quovo because it was a platform that serviced so many other fintechs. So I was like, this is the best job I can get because their API connects to Bank of America and Wells Fargo and Chase, and then every fintech that needs connectivity to a bank, which is pretty much all of them, would use Quovo. So I was like, this is my dream job. And fortunately, Lauren took a chance on me. I had zero sales experience, never closed a deal in my life. And she said yes. And then I was like, okay, crap, I need to build a network really quickly. And I want to do that with something that doesn't feel like work, because I'm already doing this grinding job working under Lauren and Lowell Putnam, who are like very...
I love Lowell. He's hilarious.
He's hilarious. And he's also a very strong leader that pushes you to be your best self, as does Lauren. So I was like, okay, I need to find a way to build a network that is something to do with what I'm passionate about, because then it won't feel like work on top of these 12-hour days that I'm doing already. And when I saw Michelle's meetup, I was like, perfect. Like I'd been to the one in Hong Kong. It was so helpful. I'd worked for big banks for 10 years and saw my male counterparts go on a golf day and get a connection that led to a promotion. So I was like, I want to work with Michelle to build out this FinTech Women network in New York. And after that first event, I was like, can I work with you? And she said, yes, luckily. And it's really grown from there. So now we have 16,000 members across the US, chapters in San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Miami. We've hosted over 200 events in New York. We did one last night.
We should get a chapter in Austin.
We need a chapter in Austin.
We need a chapter in Austin, especially with women like Cameron Peak and at Restive and like so many great women in Austin. So
I will say, I remember when Sasha came up, she's like, can I help you? And I was like, with what? I don't know what I'm doing. It all started so organically. And I think that just spoke, and it built up so fast too, because of the need in the market that people really needed to find a community. And so it was such a great time when we started off and got to work with so many amazing companies too that wanted to help us out.
And the thing that was the most surprising was how many male CEOs wanted us to host an event in their office. And we've always, from the beginning, made this a group that's completely inclusive. We want male allies to be members because Michelle and I truly believe that that's how we're going to make change, and we don't want to be just a bunch of women complaining in the corner, because that's not helping anyone.
It's been such a absolute pleasure and joy to watch you two, my friends, build this amazing community. And you've both been so articulate and thoughtful about trying to really create opportunity for women, community for women. And I would love to hear how you think things have changed in financial services over these 9 years. And where do you think we are now?
Well, I think so much has changed. And I think when we started, fintech was a nascent term. And it's no longer a nascent term, right? Like fintech really is everything. And I think that's been a major shift in how people view fintech. It was always there. It just, had a name and people need to figure out how to use it. And where we are today is that there's been so much advancement, right? Like even in the past year with how everything is deployed using AI. And there's just been a lot of change too in terms of support for women in fintech in general. It's been really cool to see, like as Sasha said, all these companies, those are, founded by male CEOs and others who want to support women in fintech. And it's not just startups. It's, the AWSs of the world, it's NASDAQ, it's NYC, it's, Bank of America. So it's all these major corporations who see the opportunity to bring women in the fold in a more intentional way. I think it's even more important now, right, in our current environment where sometimes DEI or women are not as is not as out there or not as accepted, perhaps, that we put even more effort in really helping to amplify and empower women. So I use the word a lot, amplification. And to me, that's like a verb in our mission statement. So our mission statement formally is to empower, connect, and promote women in fintech. And so that promotion, that amplification, getting the name out there, shouting everyone's name out there for everyone to hear is such an important part of how we can help impact this industry. And I think that's changed a lot over time too, is, how people are talking about women in fintech. And it's even more important now that women talk more about women in fintech, given everything that's happening with AI. So that's how I think it's been changing.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Sasha, you took a detour, not a detour necessarily, but you took a moment and went into VC because you were so committed to also just funding female founders. I want your perspective, but also with that lens too of it does seem like there's maybe more of us in leadership positions and founder roles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when Michelle and I were forming this group and it was starting to get traction, we would often get asked to speak at conferences that were usually all men on the panel. So we'd be a good person to walk in and do the MC or whatever. And I did this opening remarks at this fintech retreat in San Francisco that Alex Pellin put on. And I'd written what I wanted to say, and he came back to me. He was like, "Can you say something more? Can you actually say something that is maybe going to make a change?" And so I was like, "Okay." And so I really thought about it, and because we had so many members for FinTech Women, people were always saying to me, "Why is it that we don't have that many women that are venture backed in fintech? Why is the number only 2%?" And then it unfortunately went down to 1% a year after that. And there are tons of reasons why. Women have babies. That takes us out of the workforce for a significant amount of time. Gender roles, 2,000 years of history, all the billion-dollar CEOs we've seen are men, and that creates unconscious bias. So those are things that we can't change. But one thing that we have control over is how many women are investing in companies, how many female VCs we have that have authority at the investment committee table, then follows on to more female founders getting venture funding and more women taking board seats on these companies. And then that trickles down into senior leaders being hired at these companies. And that was the message that I gave at that retreat. And fortunately, it was well received, and Fin Capital took a chance on me and hired me as a principal on the investment team, which I'm so grateful for and was incredible experience. And even though that's a B2B fintech firm investing in anyone that's a great founder that's going to deliver a great return for the LPs, I had a personal mandate to invest in as many women as I could. And during those 2 years, I did 7 deals and had 5 female co-founders across them. So even though that's not that many, it still kind of moves the needle a little bit, unfortunately, because the number is so low. So that
I actually want to ask you too on that front. I feel like part of it is also imposter syndrome a little bit. The way I hear men talk about how good they are at what they do and their job and everything, whereas for me, my husband will come home and talk about how he's crushing at work, etc. And then I'll be like, saying things like, I have no idea why people even pay me to do what I do. Like, am I really qualified to do this? And then I'll talk to a man, tell them what I charge, and you should charge more. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, this is just like, I feel I'm very much not alone as a female doing that. Did you notice that at all in pitches as well?
Yeah, totally. Like I would see these brilliant women get in front of investment committee and then just freeze up or over explain was like another common thing that would happen. So much so that I did an event with Barclays that was focused on how to get VC conviction as a female founder, because I felt that it was such a topic that needed to be addressed. And within that, we talked a lot about how like man pitching will just say, this is the stat or this is what my idea is, and then stop. But then women kind of feel like they have to like keep going to over explain, which then like puts less confidence in them as a CEO. So like that's definitely one learning that I took away. Another key learning was a lot of women were coming to me with a direct to consumer idea. And that is great, but you also need to give the VCs what they're looking for if you want to be venture backed. And so that was like another key part of the message, which was like, look at B2B fintech. Like, even if you're drawn to a direct consumer idea, if you can have like a B2B go to market strategy, then that's what VCs want to see, because the CAC is lower, the scalability is higher, and you're more likely to get investors.
That makes sense. Yeah. So talk me through, we've talked a lot about your guys' past, and there's obviously been, you guys have done very well, gotten leadership positions at a number of companies, et cetera. Talk to me through some career highs and lows, and how you got through those lows, how you used them to help fuel your growth, and continue to stay in the space and continue to expand on your career.
Do you want to go first, Michelle?
Sure. Let's see, career low. We're all, a few of us are in, go to market positions where we've been head of sales, head of enterprise. And those are always really hard roles. The average tenure for a startup CRO is 14 months. Because as you think about, someone that goes in who leads sales at a startup, either they're transitioning from founder-led sales, so it's really hard for the founder to let go of, their baby in that mechanism. And I would have to say, one of my lows that I had was really struggling through some organizations where it was, a founder-led transition. And getting that transition right is always difficult, right? Making sure that you're working with a lean team. There's a lot of expectation, right? You have some big goals to hit because you're VC backed. You need to hit, multi-million-dollar goal, but there's no infrastructure. And, so those are, I think, one of my, it's just a harder time, just really figuring out, right? Like, how do you make that work? And I'll say, Lauren's like the queen of making that work. And I learned from her.
I was going to say, Lauren, I need your thoughts here too.
Exactly.
I'm at 15 months, so on borrowed time.
But there's been like so many career highs too, from winning multi-million-dollar deals and really helping people. So for a lot of companies I look at to say, okay, what are they doing at the end of the day? Like, are they trying to help people? And that's kind of like what I've been looking at in financial services. So like BlackRock, at the end of the day, they were really helping, firemen save for retirement, right? When I was at Vestwell, we're really helping small businesses create retirement and steady financial futures for employees who don't typically have that opportunity. And so for me, that was a huge high, was one, helping all these individuals really help create more financial stability through a lot of these awesome deals, which, are always fun to win. But I would also say like another career high is just helping working with such amazing people in my career. And then when we talk about networks and why NYC FinTech Women, continues to help the community, it's because we're so adamant about making sure people build really strong networks and networks that matter, right? So it's not just meeting, everyone that you can meet, but really finding the people that can help you, finding the people that you connect with, but also staying in touch with them, right? Like you can meet 1,000 people, but it's really building these deep relationships. And so that's been a really career high, is like, how do you build these relationships both internally and then externally, and then bridging it all together which I always do, which has been a lot of fun.
I think like a low for me was, Quovo was such a fun success, and then getting acquired by Plaid was exciting, and working at Plaid was cool. Like it was the it company, or kind of still is, in a way. And like, they took us to Mexico on a retreat, and it was like true San Francisco. Like we got breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like Google-esque type vibes. But after like some of those shiny things wore off a little bit, I was feeling like I wasn't making an impact like I had when I was early at Quovo, and I really missed that like early stage. And so even though that was low, it led to a high, which was getting the role at Ramp as the first sales hire and 13th employee. And it was awesome to be part of that early team, because Eric's vision was like, I want to be the top fintech company in New York, like the Stripe equivalent. And he really delivered on that mission, because Ramp is just on fire today, and so happy that I got to be part of that. From a FinTech Women perspective, it was definitely a high to host our Inspiring FinTech Female Awards at IEX and ring the bell there. And Lauren was one of our winners, and Julie too. And then NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, seeing the women's photos up where the public companies usually are, is just like such a moment. And I'm so happy that these women have a means to celebrate and promote their professional profiles. So that's a real highlight.
Quick example of that. So I was talking to Anna Mahoney with Addition Wealth, and she won Inspiring FinTech Females. I forget which year, but she was one of the faces on top of all the trading stations at the New York Stock Exchange. And I know you guys have been there, but when you walk in, one, it's decorated for the holidays, so there's like goosebumps already. And you're at the most historic institution in New York City, and your face is on top of all the trading stations splashed across the New York Stock Exchange. It is such a moment for these honorees, these recipients of the NYC FinTech Inspiring. I always mess up. NYC FinTech Women Inspiring FinTech Females. But it's a total, I know. That's why we call it IFF. But she was, that year that she won, she was raising her Series A. And she was like, because I was an IFF recipient, I was able to push through a Series A. Fast forward a few years later, she's UBS's Entrepreneur of the Year. And like, I just love that story so much, because it really speaks to like how important it is that we continue to scream these amazing leaders' names and what they're doing from the rooftop, and any way that we can, because that really is what propels it. Back to like Sasha's point of how do we get more female founders funded, is that we need to know about them, and then we also need people to invest in them.
You both are so incredible and such great community builders. I would love to hear, a tip from each of you on how to really do that. Like, Sasha has this encyclopedic memory that I will never gain access to. And Michelle, you do such a good job of telling people like, oh, do these specific things, like ask for something. But like, tell us your one tip, if it was just boiled down to one thing that you would do to build community.
Who needs HubSpot when you have Sasha Pilch?
For real. I do use LinkedIn as my CRM. But the way that I do that is like every time I meet someone, when I add them, I'll write like, great meeting you at the Stripe event last night, or whatever it is. And then that jogs my memory to like, as to how I know them. But I think like that kind of stems from something Michelle taught me. So sorry if this is your one, Michelle, and I'm taking it, but something that she started doing at our events was, she would say during the closing remarks, it's our goal for you all to meet at least 5 new people, and you can blame it on me or Sasha. And so we would hear people going up to people they didn't know and saying, oh, you're my second person. Michelle said I need to meet 5. So is it okay if I talk to you? And it was like just such a great way of fostering networking.
I mean, it takes all the pressure off, right? Like, even though if you might be like the most outgoing person, it's exhausting and sometimes scary to meet new people. And so to take the pressure off, to be like, look, someone else told me to do it, so I have to do it, and I'm going to blame them. So, and it's great. I think that's one. I think it's, the community piece is all based on continuing to build the relationship over and over again. So it's not just a one-time deal, right? You shake one handshake, you meet them. It's how do you continue to help each other? And I think one of the things I absolutely love about NYC FinTech Women is that we're all in it for each other. It's never like we're trying to, get someone's back or whatever. We're all trying to be there to help someone either make a connection for a career purpose, to make a connection for a deal purpose. I was just talking to a number of women in San Francisco. They're like, we need to go play golf. I was like, well, why do we need to play golf? They're like, because all the guys do. And so we need to help each other learn how to play golf so we can go spend 5 hours on the golf course with everyone else. I was like, you're so right. We do need to do that. And I don't play any golf, just, like I go to the driving range at best because I have cheap beers. But, it's important to like figure out how do we help each other in that. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why like Silicon Valley Bank, when we were talking to them a couple of years ago, like they do a lot of golf events now with female founders. And I remember we were at a retreat with them, and one of the female founders, who's a CEO, she was having her company retreat, and they're like, oh yeah, they're all playing golf tomorrow. And we're like, well, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just going to stay in the hotel and work. We're like, no, even if you don't play, go sit in the cart with them, because guaranteed they're going to talk about work at some point in the day, and you want to be part of that conversation. And so it's continuing to like help each other figure out and navigate essentially life and career. And then keep on building those relationships over time. And I would say like coming from New York to San Francisco too, I've had to do that a couple of times, and it's just people come out of the woodwork constantly. They're like, oh my gosh, like this is an amazing community and we want to help each other.
One question I don't think Lauren and I have asked this one in the last couple of episodes, but it's one of my favorite ones. And feel free to take a moment to think on this too. What's something, so you both have been in fintech for around a decade. What's something that you thought would have been accomplished by 2026 but has not? And then what's another thing that's already been accomplished at some point that you thought would have taken longer than what it did?
I would say for me, coming from a wealth management and asset management perspective, again, back to like 2015 when like all the like Betterment and all the robo-advisors came out and everyone thought they were going to take over the world. But really what happened was a more of a hybrid approach. I'm actually surprised that there hasn't been more digital financial services out there. Like there is a lot, don't get me wrong, but I would think that
especially in like the 401k space and stuff too, like employers, like the ones that they give you at large corporates still suck.
Like I was in that space for almost 3 years and they do suck. And that's why you have groups like Vestwell Guideline, which was acquired by Gusto, and Human Interest around, because they just need better technology. But that's all tied to such like a heavy regulated world. And so I do think at some point, like,
well, and the other one thing Betterment I remember telling me too about that business is like when they only evaluate their 401k program every few years at these large companies. So the sales cycle is super long. And then if you just pick the same option that everybody else has gone with, if something's gone wrong, it's like, well, yeah, like Apple uses that one too. Or like, of course, but if you pick a startup and then something goes wrong, it's like, well, wait, why did you pick this person then?
Oh, totally. I mean, there's a lot of bias around the new because there's a lot of old, but the old doesn't mean that it's innovative and new. I think one of the things that I think we'll see in the future too, especially with AI, is how people can get more invested sooner and with more money. And I think it's always been my mantra, right? Like in order to create a really stable financial future, you need to be invested in a number of different ways. And I speak to people and women too, who are like, at startups, whatever, and they're not putting money into their 401k or they're not investing personally. I'm like, that's just a missed opportunity from a compounding perspective. And so really like, I want to see that tip more so into getting more people invested in a better way. I think there still is this perception that like, oh, I need to have, $10,000 in order to invest. And like, really you don't. My kids have investing accounts and they're required to look at their investing account once a week. And they're like, oh, should I get McDonald's or should I get Disney or should I get Roblox, whatever? And I'm like,
wait, what age did you start doing that? I want to do that at some Quinn's 3, so she's not old enough yet. But
probably like at 6.
Okay. Lauren, you're fairly close to that then.
And I told them they're not allowed to take money out. And whenever they buy something, they have to put 30% into their investing account. And then, so I'm also creating them to think about taxes, because taxes is, so much of our lives. But I'm just starting to get them to be like, and they look at their account, and I think Roblox did really well this year. They're like, ooh, I made $10. I was like, yeah. And you only put 5 in. So look at that. But I hope that starts more.
I love that idea.
For me, in terms of like what I thought would have been accomplished by now that hasn't, it is really like these really inefficient legacy things. Like, so for example, banks today still have thousands of hours wasted every week with people calling saying, I've had fraud on my card, but it's actually just a weird merchant name that they didn't recognize. So I think like that's very solvable, like companies like Spade that offer that. And I think that's like a no-brainer. Like, why isn't everyone doing that? Because it's such a huge cost and it's such a waste of people's time calling and being like, it's been fraud, when it's actually just a legitimate transaction, especially as fraud gets worse with AI and deep fakes and things that are actually what the fraud team should be looking at. And that's a segue to what I think has happened that I wouldn't have even dreamed would happen by now, which is, since the emergence of Gen AI, how incredible things are. And like a lot of fintech companies that were the leaders are now obsolete, unfortunately, because Gen AI has just really changed the game. One in particular is a company that I recently angel invested in called Leela. Fantastic female CEO, and they offer continuous compliance monitoring. So no more the compliance team like worrying about, are we still like within the license of all 50 states for money transfer? Like, is our banking 20-page agreement still compliant? Like, there's no need for humans to have to like weed through all of those things when AI can do it on a 24/7 basis. So that's something that I'm excited about.
Sasha, you got to tell us about these investments. Because if there's one thing that I feel like I have really taken from you and Michelle too, is that like we have to talk to each other about these kind of things. I'm not really giving you a hard time about that one in particular. I feel like we're heavily invested in a lot of the same things. But to Julie's point about, like the maybe imposter syndrome being more prevalent amongst women, I think the great ways that you folks have shown me how to like really deal with that is by talking to your friends and having that group of women that you can call and you can say like, do you think this is fair? Should I be asking for more? And ideally there's a man or two in that group too that you trust and that values you in the way that they would value anyone. And yeah, I just don't want to not mention that you guys have been such proponents of that.
Yeah. And it's good. It's a good point. It's like really the next phase that Michelle and I have been talking about for FinTech Women. Like we do the events, we host the awards, we feature a woman every Friday, and helping women become angel investors and be comfortable with sharing deal flow and talking about investments is really the next thing that we're looking to do.
And the other thing is like even being an LP in a fund, it's not like you need tens of thousands of dollars to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of options as well that we are going to be highlighting soon in terms of our members that do offer ability for women to be LPs and learn from that perspective.
I think women are just afraid to ask sometimes, right? That they don't want to seem like they don't know.
I haven't had a single woman ask me for an investment as a Bain Capital Scout either. It's always been men that ask.
So I think like the very foundational step is just making awareness and education. So then it's, similar to like golf, right? Like you don't want to get out there on the course because you don't know what you're doing. And then you don't want to look like an idiot when you get out there. And so it's really starting with just teaching and like, what do you need to know? And then giving them access.
Totally. Knowledge and access, very powerful together. I love that. Well, let's end on like prediction type thing. What's most exciting for you in fintech right now? There's so much going on. There's stablecoins, there's AI, like all the things happening all at once. Over the next 12 to 18 months, what are you most excited about? I know it's hard to pick because we probably have like 4 that come to mind instantly, but
I mean, stablecoin is exciting. Like, I just went to Miami during Consensus and hosted a big event for one of my clients, Turnkey, that provides stablecoin wallet infrastructure. They've done obviously really well with the crypto native companies, but now there's so much interest from Goldman, Morgan Stanley, BNY. Like, it's pretty exciting that finally it's not just this crypto only people and it's becoming more mainstream, and it makes sense from an efficiency perspective to use stablecoins rather than Swift and the traditional inefficient ways of moving money around the world from FX or treasury use case. So I feel like that's pretty exciting.
Mine's gonna be a little bit boring, but I think it's really exciting personally. And it's around AI and finance and wealth tech. I think how AI is going to transform all different areas of wealth tech, from client service to compliance, and essentially what that means is just making it easier for people to get good financial advice at the end of the day. So that's what I'm really excited, because I've been working with a number of different clients who that's what they're building to, right? There's just so much that you can do now with AI. I think what's to be seen is how it's regulated, and how it's checked is kind of the next frontier, especially when it comes to financial services and advisory. But I'm really excited that it's helping people get better advice faster.
Lauren, what's most exciting to you right now?
Well, I do love that. Like, I actually think there's like this moment where what Sasha said and what Michelle said is actually going to come together, because like the financial services that you can offer as a first party, like as the actual advisory firm, but with the accounts, I think is so much more powerful than like the days of, oh, you're doing this over here, you should do it differently. Like you can't have an agent go change something in an account that you don't have access to. And so I think, with stablecoin infrastructure and the ability to have like flexible account setup and creation and compliance, like the aperture actually just gets so much more larger. And I'm excited about like bringing context of like financial data and foundational models to financial services. I think like financial services has been really, really behind even in like BI tool adoption or like being able to answer simple questions or queries. And I really love the work that we're doing at Spade, because I feel like we have the context on first party data that is missing and required to build a foundation model. And so like all the things the Revoluts of the world are doing, we're helping to empower. And I love being a part of that moment. And I think it will be just like those early Quobo days of like, this is kind of ubiquitous to create something cool and new in financial services. And those moments are super special.
I feel like it's a very exciting time to be where we are in our careers too, just with everything going on. So I feel lucky to be the age I am right now.
Yeah, to be the age we are and have friends like this.
Exactly. Well, we still need to talk about the Austin chapter of New York City FinTech Women. I have not made your list before, so I was not invited to New York Stock Exchange. So I did. So one year when I was a producer, I got to go down to the New York Stock Exchange and be that producer for 2 days. And it was around the holidays too. So I was just like remembering all those things. It was so awesome. But thank you so much for joining us, you guys. This was awesome. And I, especially on short notice and everything too. I really appreciate it. 7 a.m., now almost 8 a.m. on the West Coast.
The kids are starting to stir.
There you go. Mine just got up, so she's running around with a naked butt right now because she took her diaper off. So,
well, you have a standing invite to any of our holiday inspiring fintech females.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.